every day, or almost every week, we have a protest somewhere. This one particularly in Israel. Now, the protests in Israel are now entering their 16th week, and it's clear to most Israelis that the very public argument that we're having isn't about this policy or that policy, but it's about the state of Israel's very essence. Now, we learned this the hard way. When Israelis first started taking to the streets, everybody was baffled by the intensity. Now, I support the reforms, and I believe that the passage of some version of the proposed legislation will increase liberty and bolster Israel's democracy. Now, even if I have real and meaningful issues with some of the center points, I regard as unassailable the reform's key premises, that the Israeli Attorney General should not act as the elected government's de facto boss, and that the sitting Israeli Supreme Court justices should not have veto power over the new appointments to the court. So when many people that we love and admire respond to my support of the reforms with such intensity, it's, I'm genuinely eager to hear why this legislation struck them as sorry, tongue tied, anathema, whatever the fuck if I'm saying that right. Now, some said that they supported the general substantive outlines of the reform package, but they were either unhappy with the process or distrustful of the particular politicians tasked with overseeing this. Now, some people like me opposed the specific aspects of the proposals, such as its controversial override clause. Now, the more we talk about the reform, the more it became clear that the reform itself wasn't really the issue. Now, what the protesters have been fighting for, most of those that I spoke with eventually agreed, is a specific vision for the future of Israel for itself. Now, what do they mean by that exactly? Now, to understand the answer, you have to go back to the roots of Zionism. The movement's founding fathers all shared one goal: the Jewish people's return to its indigenous homeland. Eretz Israel. A person named Israel. Israel, and the establishment of a sovereign state there. Now, what that state might look like was subject to strident discord. Now, some wanted a socialist utopia. Others, they wanted a hub of Hebrew culture. And others, a militarized safe zone. Now, but those debates were temporarily shelved while the fight for national independence and survival had raged on. 75 years later, several wars and many successful startups later, the same ancient and unresolved debates are once again raging upon us. Now, the hardcore of the folks protesting on Tel Aviv's Kaplan Street every Saturday night might have one simple goal. They want to be fucking normal, just like any other fucking nation on earth. So while some of the outward signs of Jewish life and identity might appeal to them, the Star of David on the Israeli flag, say, or the Hebrew language, and the true great good lies in catching up with the strength and prosperity of the broader West. Now, they believe, with as much justification, that in this respect, Israelis have carried more than their fair share of the burden. They also believe in maintaining their vision of what Israel ought to be, and what it entails, keeping political power away from those that they regard as their primitive brethren. Now, living according to antiquated codes, and who, so they assume, wish to foist some Hebrew-speaking version of Uranian theocracy upon the rest of the nation. Now, the notion that supporters of the judicial reform simply want a real democracy, the sort where voters and their duly elected representatives, and not an unelected elite of judicial oligarchs, have the final say. And it seems preposterous to them. And when they look at those of us with beards and when they look at people with beards and yarmulkes, they see a demographic threat, a future in which the state that they love will be crowded, and not with tanned entrepreneurs, but planning lucrative IPOs, but with pale kids studying Talmud and yeshiva. And to avert this nightmare scenario, the protesters are ready to wield their considerable socioeconomic clout to hold Israeli democracy hostage here. Now, the examples of this hardcore use of soft power, which is abound, but you hardly have to wade into the murky waters of Israeli politics to find reasons to question what precisely the protesters mean when they shout, "Demokratia." I'm not sure if I'm saying that right either. Now, why does the Israeli Supreme Court repeatedly weigh in on political questions that would not be regarded as justifiable in any other country, and in predictably one-sided fashion. And why, for example, does that particular court and its proxies in the Attorney General's office insist on ruling that various instances of voluntary gender separation by members of traditional communities are illegal, even in private institutions? Now, the court's zeal in striking down anything that remotely implicates the expression of faith is jarring, particularly as Judaism, and its infinite wisdom, cautions us against precisely such sweeping applications of authority and power. Now, sadly, the third or so of Israelis currently engaged in an effort to reclaim the Jewish state from the majority. They so palpably fear misunderstood the motivations of those, and like me, we support judicial reform. We don't want a theocracy. We want the freedom to live the fully Jewish lives that we have chosen, and the freedom of others to live as they choose so. And we don't want big government. We want appropriate checks and balances among the branches of government. Now, people want a Jewish state that facilitates but doesn't dictate the preservation and development of Jewish tradition. We don't want the government telling Israelis how to practice or not practice and the dictates of their faith. We simply want common courtesy and mutual respect to carry the day. In fact, even our Haredi brothers and sisters, who perhaps unwisely promoted a slate of recent legislation to protect public expressions of faith, and they did so only to counteract judicial intervention that had invalidated the previous informal arrangements. And they too generally just want the freedom to live their lives as they fucking choose. Now, it's a privilege to have inherited an amazing Jewish tradition, because my whole family's Jewish, basically, and to maintain it in a way both loyal to its essence and adapted to our circumstances. Now, for this spirit to live on, Israel needs both more liberty and more Jewishness, and the two are intertwined. Jewish tradition persists because it is vibrant. It is a perpetual motion machine, always generating new and exciting ways to be Jewish, and it can't go on unless we give disparate Jewish communities the liberty to try out their own version of living Jewishly. And we need a Jewish national homeland to deliver the strong sense of cultural society that encourages the sort of risk-taking that is simply not possible, where persecution and assimilation are real and pertinent risks. When traditional Jews feel safe in the state that is proud of our shared values and that allows individuals and communities the freedom to promote and explore them, rather than say, the channeling taxpayers' money to artists whose work is focused mainly on denigrating those very values, and they are likely to engage in precisely the sort of creative reinvention that has shaped Judaism that helped Judaism adapt and survive, even as so many other belief systems and peoples have perished. So while I don't underestimate the dedication of Israel's protest movement, I'd like to have the real debate and not some proxy conversation. The real debate is about the kind of Israel that people want, a soulless European Union with a Hebrew accent, an arc of history that may be long but that bends towards hegemonic progressiveness and the scrubbing of any markers of genuine Jewish identity, or a place at once rooted in tradition and open to real competition, innovation, and ideals. And here's hoping to the best vision and what wins. So if you like the video, you can give the video a like and subscribe to my channel, RBW King. You can also hit the notification bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out. If you want to support my work even further, or you can also leave a comment, let me know what you think. So if you want to support my work even further, you can donate to my Patreon link, which you can find in the About section of YouTube. And for just a little, is a few bucks a video or a month, your donation can help go a long way, and thanks for listening.